Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Tank. I'm your host Tyler Rains, and this week we're going to be breaking down all things Steelheads, including the first 7 games of the season, a couple of injuries, and a possible return of a future Steelhead. Let's get into it. All right, so the last time that we spoke, we were talking to general manager and head coach James Richmond, which was a really fun episode. If you haven't already done so, go and check that out for sure. It's definitely a great conversation that I had with him. And as always, it's always great to talk to JR. The Steelheads started off the first game of the regular season a couple weeks ago. This one was a fun one. They started off, and it looked like they were kind of trying to find their groove a little bit. They were 1-0 in the season. They came home for their home opener. They ended up dropping their home opener to Sudbury. I believe it was 5-1. Wasn't really that great. But since then, they have gone from 1-1 to now 6-1 and are second place in the Eastern Conference, first place in the Central Division. What went right for these guys? There were a lot of things that went right. Number one, they played solid offense. The offense has been firing on all cylinders ever since getting back Luca Del Belbaluz and Owen Beck from NHL training camps. Their offense has been good. Their defense has been good. Not stellar, but it's been good. Ethan Del Mastro really helped returning from the Chicago Blackhawks after training camp. And of course, there were a lot more factors than just that. And what am I talking about? The goaltending. Alessio Begliere has been solid. Ryerson Leander's got his first win of the year of his OHL career on Sunday afternoon. And it looked really good. They looked like a well-oiled machine out there. When you have all three aspects, two solid goaltenders, you have a defense that's doing pretty good. You have an offense that's, in my opinion, the top 5 offense in the league. When you have things like that, and you have all the pieces in place, this could be a very deep playoff run come the playoffs. But as of right now, they're second place in the Eastern Conference, first place in the Central Division. All is going right for the Steelheads, including what we're going to talk about next, which was a 3-3. You know triple headers. You know, if anybody knows me, I'm not a fan of triple headers. You know, I think that that's a whole other discussion. But triple headers, they played 3 games in 3 days. Friday, they faced the London Knights. Saturday, they were back home to face the Oshawa Generals. And Sunday, of course, they were back home again to face off against the Sarnia Sting. All 3 games they won. The last time that the Mississauga Steelheads swept a triple header on a weekend was the 2017-18 season. This one was a big weekend for them, not just because they took the top spot in the Central Division, but because this was kind of a prove-it week for this team to see what they need to work on, how well they can gel together. We saw the additions the last time of Bryce Cook. Jake Uberti changed his number, and he's actually looking a lot better now. We obviously saw the additions of Ryan Struthers and Isaac Enright, which we'll talk about Enright in a little bit. But these guys together so far looked incredible. The first game was against London at Budweiser Gardens. Beautiful arena. Over 9,200 people were in attendance that game, which was pretty incredible. Anytime that you get that sort of attendance numbers in an OHL game, you're going to probably be a little bit intimidated, especially if you're the other team that's visiting. The Steelheads ended up taking this one in overtime 5-4, Owen Beck scoring the game-winning goal at 2:07. If you want to talk about players who are criminally underrated and who should have gone top 15 in the draft this past season, Owen Beck is the guy. Because there were teams that I thought were going to take him in the first round. You know, I thought that the Leafs were going to scoop up and take him, right? I thought that the Blackhawks, with the pick that Toronto gave them, I thought that they were going to do it. There were a couple times where Montreal looked like they could end up taking a swing at him in the first round. But he didn't go first round. He went the very first pick in the second round to the Montreal Canadiens. And to say that he has been impressive for the Steelheads and in Canadiens training camp is an understatement. I think you have to give them more credit where it's due. You have to give these guys some sort of applause, because the more that they continue to impress, the more that they continue to defy expectations. I've had a lot of people this offseason tell me, there's going to be a lot of guys that they have to ship out, not sure how this team is going to look. For what they've got, and it's still pretty good, they had all of their core returning. Zach Lavoie came back. Owen Beck came back. Obviously, James Hardy came back, and he's been looking like his normal, regular self. Ethan Del Mastro. There are so many names that came back that were part of this core that are establishing themselves as some of the best players in the league this season. This one is going to be one to look forward to. The goals for Mississauga in that London game: Charlie Callahan scored the opener. Owen Beck, his first of the season. Zach Lavoie, Luca Del Belbaluz, and of course Owen Beck winning it in overtime. Sam Dickinson got, I believe, his first with the Knights. George Diaco scored, Ryan Del Monte, and Denver Barkey for London. That was a good game. If you want to talk about games that are going to get the crowd real hyped up, it looked like at one point, London went ahead. They were, the Steelheads were ahead 2-0. The Knights came back and tied it. Del Monte took the lead. Del Belbaluz came back and tied it. London took a lead with just under 6 minutes left in the game. London tied it with just under 6 minutes left in the game. And then, of course, we went to overtime. We had that thrilling overtime goal by Owen Beck. It's a win in that first game against the London Knights. And what happens then? A lot of really good stuff. They come home Saturday afternoon to face off against the Oshawa Generals, which is a pretty interesting game because you're not used to seeing Saturday games at Paramount Fine Food Center. It's usually only Fridays and Sundays, or they are Saturday games if they're away. You're never usually used to seeing them at home. But nonetheless, they came home and they put on a stellar performance against the Oshawa Generals. Brett Harrison and Callum Ritchie opened up the scoring for the for the Generals. Brett Harrison scored 23 seconds into the game. Obviously not the start that you want. You obviously want to get that first goal. But anytime that you can come back from being down 1-0 early, that's what you like to see. So Brett Harrison scored the opening goal for the Generals, followed by Luca Del Belbaluz about 5 minutes later. James Hardy takes them to a 2-0 lead. Callum Ritchie ties that one, and then that's going to be it for scoring until the third period, where Ethan Del Mastro absolutely rockets a shot to win the game 3-2 on Saturday. Now, this was an important game because Oshawa is still a very strong team. They have the youngsters in Callum Ritchie. They've got Brett Harrison. Patrick Lever's their starting goalie, and a lot of people didn't think he would be as good as he is this season. He's looking very good. And what happens when you have two stellar goalies? Exactly this. All of the scoring was in the first period. The shots were 27-24 in favor of the Steelheads. And in the second period, it was just absolutely gridlocked. There was no scoring. That was it. It was a tie game until late into the third, mind you. 3 minutes and 32 seconds left. Ethan Del Mastro scores the game-winning goal. That was a really, really great game because, again, like I mentioned, Oshawa is projected to be one of the best teams in the league this year. And, anytime that you can get a win against a team of that caliber is a win in my books. Third game was an incredible game, to say the very least, against the Sarnia Sting. First period was scoreless. Both goaltenders just played incredible. Ryerson Leanders got his second start in his OHL career. And Ben Gaudreau starting on the other side for the Sarnia Sting. Both of them played incredibly well through that first period. Through the second period, there was not a whole lot of scoring until the second and third periods of this game. Finally, Max Nemesnikov at about halfway through the second period puts the Sting up by 1. Obviously, the Steelheads were not happy with that. About 5 minutes later, Zach Lavoie ties the game. going into the third period, it's a 1-1 tie. Owen Beck scores, breaks the tie. It's 2-1 Steelheads. They look like they're going to win the game. They're confident about it. But here's the problem. You have to stay out of the penalty box. We've talked about it so often this past season. You have to stay out of the box. And I think that this was tensions boiling over from past games, because you had a lot of instigating penalties. You had a lot of hooking calls, slashing calls. There were a lot of penalties called. I think there were about 40 penalty minutes between the two teams in that game, which, it's obviously not great. You want to stay out of the box. There were a couple of power play goals scored. I believe the Nolan Burke goal that was scored by Sarnia was a power play goal. So he tied it up into the third. And of course, then with 8 minutes left into the third period, James Hardy rifles one, and the Steelheads win that game 3-2. Anytime that you go 3 for 3, anytime that you go, a triple header, and you win all 3 games that weekend, that's a win. There's no sense in saying, hey, we could have done this better. Just take the win. But in this case, I think that you can argue that, because they may have won the game, but the issue with this is you have to stay out of the box, because there were a couple of times in these games. I want to use the Oshawa and the Sarnia games as proof of that. They didn't stay out of the box, and it nearly cost them the game. Now, despite the fact that they ended up coming back, they ended up playing very well in both those games. They need to stay out of the penalty box. As much as you really want to play physical, and as much as you want to play, with that fiery passion that you're always known to play with, you have to keep in mind, though, too, the hits that you make, the fights that you get into, they're all going to rack up the penalty minutes, and especially those instigating penalties. It didn't do them any favors in this game. But they did end up winning the game, which is the important part. They ended up getting 3 for 3. They sit the second place in the Eastern Conference, first place in the Central Division, and that's looking like a really, really good start for the Steelheads. Now, there are a couple of little bits of information that Steelheads fans might not have been aware of, and I want to go into the first one. You may have noticed that Isaac Enright has been out of the lineup for a little bit. For those who didn't catch it, he actually is under concussion protocol. He does have a concussion. As far as I know so far, there's no return date, no timetable for his return. But if I had to assume, it's probably not going to be anytime soon, considering that it is a concussion. We don't know the severity of it, really. But as far as we know right now, Isaac Enright, just really hoping that he recovers soon. Concussions are no joke, especially when you're out there and you really just want to play the game, get back into the swing of things. He was a couple of games removed off of his new team, and then he goes down with a concussion. That obviously really, really sucks. So wishing Isaac all the best. This is going to be one of those times where you need to, I think, step up, because if you have a top guy who goes down like that, you're going to need to fill that gap. Obviously, Charlie Callahan's been doing a good job. Ethan Del Mastro's been doing a good job. But there's something missing from that D-core. Now, you're giving the guys who are playing in their first season a lot of ice time. Liam Spencer got into a couple of games. Finn Harding's been playing, which he's looked very good. But there's still that kind of hole in the defense where you need to, I think, fill it. Which brings me to the next part of the episode, which is actually going to be the final part of the episode today. It's a little bit of a shorter one, but it's been a good one so far. Kasper Larsson. Now, fans, you know that name. He was a defenseman for the Steelheads last season. He played really well, 6'6", extremely, extremely good at blocking shots. An interesting bit of information that I found out of the game last night, or on Sunday rather, is that he was back on the lineup sheet. And I was a little bit confused at first. I was just like, oh, maybe someone made an error. Anything could happen, right? Because they already have 2 import spots. They obviously have Alessio Beglieri, who came over from Switzerland, and they have Valdemar Hall, who also came over from Switzerland. So, with that being said, I inquired a little bit more about what was going on. So, and apparently, the Steelheads were in talks to bring Kasper Larsson back to the team. So, in order for that to happen, they would have to get rid of one of their import spots, right? Because you can only, in the CHL, you can only have 2 import players, I believe, on your roster at a time. So there is a little bit of a question of who are they going to get rid of. They're obviously not going to get rid of Alessio Beglieri, right? Because he's their starting goaltender. You're not going to get rid of a guy who's been incredible so far and is probably going to take you through the rest of the season as a starter. Valdemar Hall, I think he's going to be the odd one out. As much as I really, really hate to say it, he's looked good. But again, if you're bringing a guy like Kasper Larsson in to reinforce the blue line, I think that that's going to be a likely destination or a likely player that's going to have to go. Given the fact that he's played extremely well, you're probably going to get some sort of value off of him. I don't think that you necessarily have to get, a second-round pick, a third-round pick for him. You can get something decent, but he has played extremely well. But if you're bringing in a guy like Kasper Larsson to reinforce the blue line, and you saw how solid he was last season, I think that that's a pretty fair deal to get rid of him. You obviously hate to see guys go, but if you're going to bring back a guy who has been extremely solid for you, like I said, then I think that's pretty much what has to happen, right? So Kasper Larsson looks like he's going to be back with the Steelheads full time. There could be a couple of trades. I don't know what's going to happen, but as of right now, this team is looking pretty solid. And if they continue it through the rest of the season, they're going to reach greatness that we've never seen before. So with that being said, I'm going to take you into some of the post-game comments from this weekend. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell notification for all future content. And until next week, this has been your host, Tyler Rains, for Inside the Tank, and I will see you in the next episode.
I've got a huge weekend. This weekend, a 3 out of 3, a sweep, 6 total points out of a possible total 6. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this weekend so far.
Yeah, can't get much better than that, right? You go into it, you want to have 6 out of 6, and we got 6 out of 6, so it's all good for us. I mean, 3 1-goal games, 3 tight games against good hockey teams, and our guys really played well. Really played well.
This game, given how physical we've seen Sarnia be, a lot of big guys on their end, and out-shooting you pretty heavily very early on. How much perseverance just went into your guys' effort?
What I liked a lot that was that there was no. We had pushback. When teams in the past got physical with us, maybe we weren't as we didn't stay in there as hard as we'd like. Today, we had pushback, so it was we didn't go away when the other team started pushing us around. Holmbeck's hit in the third. Zabeski's couple shifts where he just went in pounding guys. Yeah, we're ready to play whatever way they want to play. So.
That's a good point. Just because you think of this team as being more, I guess, star-studded, fast, but there's some grit there too.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our stars, but Holmbeck is pretty heavy.
Yeah,
plays
play
pretty
either
heavy.
way.
So yeah, Ethan Delmarshall's a star. The big bear on the ice, right? Kai Schwinn, pretty tough forward to get around out there. So, yeah, so it's. I thought we had a real complete weekend. I really did.
And a big talk of the game today was Ryerson Leaders getting his first regular season win today. Just wanted to get your thoughts on, number one, how he performed today and how he's been fitting in with the group so far.
Well, one, he's fit in very nicely. He's a young guy, and the guys have kind of brought him in under their wings and really taken care of him, I think. But Ryerson Leaders was the first goalie taken at the draft, and there's a reason why. He played great through the exhibition. He skinned his knees in the first game here, the home opener, but you saw tonight what he's all about. I mean, he's going to be a star goalie in this league. So, not unlike the kid at the other end today. He was a first-round pick for Sarnia, Goudreau, and warranted it, and he's played really well. So, but this kid here he's pretty good. He's special.
Going back to the draft, actually, I remember that round, and 4 goalies taken, but did you see Ryerson as like far and away the best goalie in that group?
Chris Beckford too did, yeah. So it's and I agree with him. And we wanted to get a special goalie, and I think we got one.
Okay, Ryerson, your first OHL regular season win. Obviously, kind of a hard one for you guys, but you did get the win. How are you feeling after this one?
Yeah, it feels great. First win. Like, I'm on a high right now, but the team played great. It was a great win.
Obviously very busy, particularly early on in this. At what point did you kind of feel dialed in and really feeling good about yourself today?
Well, you got to get dialed in right from the start, like right from warmies. So yeah, right from the get-go.
Since coming into the team, you are quite a young goaltender. Have you had any real troubles adjusting, or how have you adjusted to this team so far?
Yeah, well, obviously like faster play, hard shots, and all that. But yeah, after a few weeks, you get used to it, used to the tempo, and yeah, just try to do my best.
And of course, yeah, sorry about it.
No problem. But I guess what goes into your preparation practice-wise when you know you're probably not going to get as many games as LSU, but need to know that you need to be ready whenever you're called upon.
Yeah, you just do what you need to do. Act like you're playing every game, like just get the same practice in. Yeah, just work hard.
Big weekend this weekend. You guys took a 6 out of a possible total 6 points. Got a couple of games coming up next weekend. What can you do to keep the momentum rolling and to continue that reign?
Get to work in practices. Stay humble. Like, yeah, just keep going.
All right, James. Big weekend for the Steelheads. Big sweep. 3 out of 3 games, 6 total points. What went right for you guys today?
Honestly, we just all clicked as a group. It felt amazing. Winning 3 games in a weekend. It's not easy to do, especially in 3 days. It's amazing for our group and amazing for our momentum going forward.
Does this one here seem a little bit more special than the previous 2? Just given how physical Sarnia was, I get the feeling that you really had to work for this one and persevere today. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were shorthanded a lot of the game today. We battled back some through adversity throughout the whole game, and for us to come out on the top of that one is big for our group.
And a couple of games coming up next weekend. What can you do to keep the momentum rolling forward as the Steelheads are now at the top of the Eastern Conference as of today?
Yeah, just keep playing our game. We showed up out there every game we played, and we play the way our coach wants us to play, and it's been working for us.
We're seeing this team kind of be built exactly as advertised. Like sometimes you see a good team on paper, but not able to get off to a very good start. But how do you kind of stay level-headed through all this?
Yeah, you kind of just stay humble and just work. It's nothing can be handed to you. Every team's going to come in and try and knock you off, especially at the top. Everyone wants to beat you. So we just play our game and work every night. It's going to be nice for us.